Hello. So, this vlog is about expanding this topic from my blog that I wrote, and this topic is a very interesting one, and it's something that I really could expand on quite a bit more, and it is really an interesting topic, and it does get me excited to expand on this point because it is something that is new and something that really explains a point of me as in people in general and just all of us, this system that I see very clearly existing as all of us in this world. So this has to do with this it's a system, it's something that, it's like within who we are, how we act, and the words are being very utilizing to be very convincing, being very, very persuasive, and being very likable, and putting yourself in the system in terms of having to sell yourself in order to get your job, so that's where it stems from, or that's one point that supports the point. That's why I'm seeing it as something that we all have, because, okay, let me just focus here. So, looking at it from my perspective, me, it is a point of how I've noticed since being more in the world system in terms of working, in terms of being part of that process of, job applications and talking with people and having conversations with people and working within sales. I can see this point of believing that I need to be convincing, that I need to be persuasive. And I had this experience with someone who was older than me, who I was working with, and they told me that I should be more persuasive. And that kind of really stuck out to me because before I was just simply saying the truth, just simply saying exactly what I'm seeing. And so now what I'm seeing is that there is this very basic system point that we are all participating in, which is reinforced by survival and by the world system, because it kind of gives that support structure of it's okay to do this. It gives that excuse, kind of the content of that excuse. For example, it comes down to the simple moments of when you're having a conversation with someone, that you simply share your perspective as it is, unconditionally, not trying to change it from their perspective, trying to have them agree with you, trying to convince them, trying to be agreeable for them. That's the point, and it's, in a way, I suppose it's the subtle point, because if I just say it like this, it seems like it's no big deal, but it is a very serious point, has a tremendous impact, because it's either doing that or actually just naturally expressing yourself, like a child would do, like how we all used to do, without trying to be persuasive, trying to be convincing, trying to have a stake whether someone believes this or not. So let me try to describe this some more, because I can see how it can be seeming like a very simple point that seems like it's no big deal. What I'm seeing is that throughout throughout our relationships, throughout society, throughout the structure of what we accept as normal in dating and friendships and relationships and in family relationships, how there is that point of wanting to be liked, wanting to be attractive, wanting to persuade and convince other people, and having to sell yourself, and having to be liked, being like a personality. And it's that very action, the very moment of when you're speaking, when you're doing something, that you change yourself so that you are purposely living the objective and the goal that you will be liked, you will be accepted, you will get that person, you will get that man or that woman. They will agree with you, they will agree with your opinion, they will change their side to you. And you see this in politics as well, which is a very serious point, because this whole thing is like a game. This whole thing is like a point of completely being fake. And that fakeness as being something completely accepted in the system by us. And we live it every day. And that is very serious. Because in dating and relationships and friendships and family and in politics, none of these points should be part of that at all. Communication should simply be a point of simply sharing and seeing what you're seeing and who you are and what your perspective is as it is. And that's it. And yes, I can agree that in the point of survival, in the point of doing your job, that's a different story. If you're a salesman, you also literally have to sell, but outside of that, it's unnecessary. Yet we do it because it is simply a point of us wanting to control and get what we want. It's something that's selfish. We choose to do it because we want that person. We want them to agree with us. We want people around us to agree with us. We want that point of control and power, and is justified through survival, through the belief that, well, I'm doing this for survival, what I'm doing is okay, what I'm doing as manipulation and deceiving and lying is okay because I'm surviving, so I might as well do it within my relationships, within my friendships, within dating. And so that becomes like the kind of excuse in a way. And it doesn't have to be that way. Yes, you can do what you need to survive for your work, but you don't have to do it within the rest of your life. You don't have to become a personality of having to try to convince everyone every single moment and having to sell yourself every single moment within everything that you're saying and doing. You don't have to be, let's say, like a bully. You know, that's your method of getting people to agree with you. You don't have to be suave, I guess, in a way, or I don't know, be confident in the way of having to make everything you say confident, having to be in a way that forces your will onto others. Because that signature, that way of living, that presence is not being real. It is completely fake. It is completely bullshit. Being real with people, those are really precious moments, and that is something that is really sincere, and you feel it and you remember it. And the one example I gave in my blog is that point of when you're sitting in the car with your friends and you're driving around and the music's on, your windows are down, you're just looking out the window, and that pure pristine moment where you're not trying to be something, no one is trying to be something for another one, no one's trying to convince anyone to be anything, a complete moment of just acceptance, of just having fun, being here with your friends in the car, with the wind going. That is one of the pure moments of life, and there are so many moments like that that we have, for some of us more than others. You know, some of us are lucky, more lucky than others, but those are moments of simply purity because you're not trying to be something, you're not trying to convince others, you're not trying to be accepted, you're all already here just being yourselves naturally without that system yet. And everyone goes to that system. Everyone has to be in the world system in some way. So we all get fucked. But we are the ones fucking because, like I said before, we do it within our work, but then we do it outside of our work. In our work, we have to sell ourselves by being the employee. We have to sell ourselves to our boss. We have to be a certain way. We have to sell ourselves. We have to be a kind of personality for that role. But what happens is people then become that as who they are, and they use that point to then, like I said, we choose to use it within friendships, within dating, within all these points. We then try to control reality. And we do that. It doesn't have to even be that way. But we are the ones who do it. We fall into that temptation. We choose to do it. So we are the ones fucking with ourselves. And I see this point manifest within people and how they talk. In the sense of, when I engage in conversation, I can see the point of when people are being suspicious, like, oh, he has an agenda. He's doing this for a reason. He can't just simply be being, hi, how are you? How are you doing? I would like to get to know you. Can we talk? What's going on with your life? You know, that point of pure, sincere moment of sharing and conversation is taken as a point of, as judging that point of, oh, they must be doing something, they must have an agenda, they're suspicious, something is wrong. And the reason why that is because we ourselves are doing that to others. We ourselves are not living for real with others. We ourselves are, we know we don't trust others because we know we aren't trustworthy. We know we are the ones having agendas. We know we are the ones using manipulation, using these points of personality to try to control and try to assert our will onto reality, onto other people. To be convincing, to be persuasive, to have our point, maybe being a bully, but having to try to force our will on the reality. And that is what's sad, and that is the very apparent truth of who we are. Because when we were kids, we were open, we were natural, we didn't have these things because we weren't doing it yet. And so yes, a natural conversation would have been so easy and so natural and just fun. And that is what we have to do. We have to take responsibility and walk the points of simply being real again in our relationships, in dating, in friendships, and the people in our lives, because we don't need to do that. If you're working survival, that's a different situation. Do what you need to survive, but you do not need to do that. You don't need to become a personality that completely takes over your life, because that is what we're doing. And I see that time and again, how the point of sales has become that point as well, where they push that point of, this is becoming who you are. You are a salesman. You become this personality, and you see that within all kinds of careers and all the kind of workplaces. You become an engineer, becomes a kind of personality, you become a professor or whoever, and becomes that point of emphasizing that this is who I am. And it doesn't have to be that way. So it doesn't mean to say sales is worse than other professions, but I do see that point as an example of what I've seen. That it becomes a point of pushing, of you have to sell yourself all the time. And that is very like a religion. That's very cult-like in the way. It's very point of trying to force a point through energy, through the mind, through belief, and it gives you that point of control and that belief that you can control others, control reality, have people believe you. And that was one point that I saw within me of how it's like, it gives me that sense of, well, if I help them believe something that is good for them, then therefore it is good. And that is not the case. You cannot force anyone to believe anything. And the consequence of doing all this that I've said, the thing that I haven't mentioned yet is this point of, if you do this point, live this point, which we are all mostly doing this point, what you do is you accept and allow, and you give permission for that point of, others can, let's say, manipulate you and abuse you and play that role of victim and abuser. Because then you actually believe that others can make you feel a certain way, can persuade you, can convince you, can make you change. You give that permission, you give that idea, you decide that that is the case because you are the one doing it and believing you can do it to other people. And so therefore you open that door of, oh, others can do that to me. And that is what's going on. That's what I've seen within myself now. That's what I understand that we are all doing to some extent, some more than others. But it's very clear. And that is how this whole thing exists as. That's how and why it exists. And to stop that point, to stop ourselves from doing it to others and doing it to ourselves is really the first point. And also working within the point that the mind, where we believe the mind can tell us what to do, that the mind can persuade us or convince us, has a kind of influence or force because we are believing this point, this very simple point of what I'm saying. We believe that the system is real because we are doing it, so it applies to the mind. And so we give that power away. And we actually believe the mind has a kind of power. Because we are doing the exact same thing to other people. Yet when we actually stop the point completely, stop trying to do it to others, stop trying to do it ourselves, stop, and every single point, and just stop, you realize, oh shit, this is fucking easy. I just have to live and express. There really is no point in this mind, in the self, in this universe that really can decide me. Because I was the one who was deciding to do it to others. I was the one who was trying to impose my will onto reality and be a god in that sense. And believe that it was right and good and just. I was the one doing it. And once I fucking stop, then it becomes a point of, oh shit. That was that. I stop now and like, okay, what can the mind really do? What can other people really do? Nothing. And then it becomes a point of living. Living the expressions. Being open, reaching out. Being the example of being simple and being direct and really living. Like a child again. Unlearning what we have learned of these things. Yes, keep surviving. Yes, keep working. Yes, keep that. But to create and live this point of being real, sincere, genuine, relaxed, and being like a child again. Having friendships of that kind of purity of a child. Really reaching out, really having those conversations. Because that really gives you that sweetness and that meaning of life. We are living it here now, for real. And there's no fear, there's no distrust, there's no suspicion, there's no paranoia. Because you are stopping that as yourself. So you're not afraid of other people doing it to you. You start having that self-trust. So all of this, it may or may not be simple for you to do. Maybe simply by hearing this, then okay, you got this, and you do it, and you're done. That may be the case, I suppose. Other people, it's going to be more difficult to understand. And yes, you have to walk a process. Some longer for some than for others. But it's still the same process. We all have to walk through the same eye of the needle. And we are all copies of each other. We are all clones. And our expressions will be very much the same or similar. And it's not about, being unique in the sense of, oh, I'm like this, you're like that. It's about being real. And putting my shoes in someone who doesn't understand what I'm saying, It comes down to this very simple point. Are you responsible or not for yourself? Is what you're doing abusive or not? If it's abusive, will you stop? So ask those kind of questions. Ask yourself why or how did it come to this? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? How am I doing it? And if you're lucky enough, try to remember the points in your life that you can rely on, which are pure moments where you really did live, where a moment of something being real in terms of your expression, in terms of the moment, whether it's with people, with friends, in the past, those kind of things guide you to understand that this is what life is supposed to be like, and this is what a real part of me that's coming through. And those are the things that you have to get to and reach and live again. Because we had that as children. We had such moments, some of us more than others. Like I said, hold on to those things, because those things guide you. And that's the why we do this, why I do this, because I know and I see the future that is possible. And I see my responsibility, and I see if I change my point, that really relieves a lot of pressure. That already gives me a lot, but it also is the stepping stone, the starting point of how we really change and recreate this reality. Because we are creating a new human being. By doing what I'm saying in this video, you're literally becoming a different human being than what has always existed. What has always existed has been human beings who've lied, who use deception as a normal part of life, who lie every day because that's considered normal. That has been the norm. That's what we've been doing. So we are creating a new human being. We are creating a new path, a new future for children. Because we weren't born that way. We were born innocent and pure. In our examples and within the forces, let's say, the pressure points of survival, and remember our point of responsibility that I did it out of self-interest. I chose to do this because I wanted that control and that power. That self-honesty gets you through. Okay. Thank you